Did you get it?
No. Hi, students are there. Sorry, we are having some technical issue. We will be starting the webinar soon.
Did she get the mail?
Yeah. But I'm not able to.
Hi, Zarna.
Hi.
I'm
I
here.
was just trying to and whether you got the link or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand the problem, but I couldn't join. I opened the first mail, but
Yeah.
it doesn't work. I didn't understand.
No worries. No worries. I'm glad you are here.
And me too. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming up. That's Sanjukta Das and Mitali Nalla.
Hi, hello.
They are my
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
So we will just start with a small presentation by us, and then we will continue with yours. Sanjukta, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to our today's webinar 107. First of all, I would like to introduce ourselves. So we at Samanuvidatr, we are a team of dedicated members who are dedicatedly working towards both to the care and conservation of heritage and creation of innovative buildings and enhancements. Mostly our focus area is on the development, research, documentation, and education of art, architecture, and culture. We at Samanuvidatr, our work, we work mostly on the heritage documentation and interiors, and also we ecology and cultural landscape. And we are also right now focusing on the architecture and education in the field of architectural education. And we are here with a lot of webinar sessions, which we have already conducted in last few months. So yes, this is all about us. So now I would request our founder member Zanna to introduce herself. Over to you, Zanna.
Thank you, Sanjukta. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Shah, and I have completed my bachelor's in architecture. I have two masters, one from US in graphics and furniture design, another one in urban conservation from India. I'm an individual member of e-commerce India and co-coordinator of NSC ARSA. and coordinator for different programs there. I'm also an associate member for Triple ID, which is for interior designers, and IIA for architects in India. And as we have introduced, our firm is dedicated for art, architecture, and culture. And we try our best that we can give you the best information available for your future goals and careers. Thank you everyone for being here today. I will like Sanjukta Das to take over from here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Zarna. Uh, I am architect Sanjukta Das. I have done my Bachelor of Architecture from Pilu Modi College of Architecture, Orissa, and I have also done my Masters in Urban Conservation from Mumbai University. And thereafter, I was working in Bangalore, and then after that, I am into the academics, into the teaching field, especially in architecture and also in heritage conservation. Right now, I'm involved with Samanuvidatr as a principal researcher, wherein I'm looking into the research and documentation, especially focusing on the cultural landscapes and the ecological conservation part. I have also presented a few papers internationally on heritage conservation of cultural landscape sites in Belgium and Budapest in 2018 and 19. So yes, this is all about me. And now I request Mitali to introduce herself and carry forward with the today's webinar session. Over to you, Mitali. I think she got disconnected.
Yeah, she's here. She's back.
Yeah. Yes, Mitali, over
Yeah.
to you.
Oh, sorry for the discrepancy. There was some issue in my internet. So, hi everyone. I am architect Mithali Nalla. I am a mid-level architect with Samanuvidatr. My interests are intangible cultural heritage. I have done my bachelor's from Sir J.J. College of Architecture in Bombay, and I've done my master's in conservation at Kamla Reza Institute, which is also in Mumbai. Following my interest, I did my thesis in conserving the footprint of food heritage at a site in Mumbai, which is the Bhindi Bazaar. With Samanuvidatr, we are looking up into projects which deal with the research of conservation site and precincts. And I hope you guys enjoy this webinar. Thank you very much. Should I introduce Keziban?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, welcome all to this webinar. So as you guys know that this webinar is in continuation with our previous webinars, which was 101 and 102, where we had given a brief idea about all of the courses. And now with interacting with students, we thought that there's the need of understanding these subjects into detail. And therefore, we are coming up with this new series where we are taking up each subject for the students to understand it in further details. So we have called upon today's speaker, which is architect Keziban Celik, if I'm not wrong. Architect Kezi has done her architecture from one of my favorite place, to talk more about this place, it not only has architectural wonders like Hagia Sophia Museum, or may I call it as Hagia Sophia, and it even has natural wonders like pure white travertine terraces of Pamukkale. Sorry, I am not able to pronounce that perfectly, but definitely it is a destination that everyone would love to visit once. And you being a citizen of that country, so I am sure that many people would have already guessed it by now. And yes, it is from Turkey. She has done her bachelor's from Izmir Institute. She even completed her master's from the same institute and is currently pursuing her PhD in the institute. She has done an extensive research on conservational topics. She has attended even various programs and learning about materials and techniques of restoration processes. So today I would like her to come and educate our students more about conservation field. And I would request all students to pay a deep attention to this because it's very difficult to get hands-on with speakers like her. And whatever questions you have, you can write it down in the question answers section in our on the Zoom app, and they will be answered after her lecture is over. And welcome, Kezi, and namaste from India.
Thank you very much, Vitali. I'm also so glad to be here. Thank you for invite. I also I hope I will give you a little information about our site, our study area. I hope it will be good. I think I can share my screen. Is it okay?
Yeah,
okay.
There'll be a share screen.
I think it's visible now.
Yes, it's perfectly visible.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Keziban Celik. Is my sound okay?
Yes, it's absolutely perfect.
Okay. I'm Keziban Celik. I'm a research assistant in Izmir Institute of Technology. Today I will talk about a little bit information about graduate programs in our school, Izmir Institute of Technology, Department of Architecture Restoration, and two research that I did before. One of them is related with historical environment, and one of them is related with historical buildings. Let's begin with graduate programs. The Izmir Institute of Technology is a state university located in Izmir, Turkey, and English education. The school is established in 1992. It includes 3 faculties and 18 departments, and one of them is architecture restoration. Is also founded 2 years after the school establishment. It includes interdisciplinary approach in the field of conservation, also give education and have opportunity to do research and also application projects in restoration. And the programs, the architectural restoration department has 3 different programs, and 2 of them are master, one of them is PhD. One of the master programs is a non-thesis. And also this education for architects, civil engineers, city planners. The non-thesis one is also for chemists. The main study fields of the Department of Architecture Restoration of ISTE, it's related with historical buildings in city in archaeological sites, material deterioration and material conservation, and also management of cultural heritage conservation. And also it's really related with documentation techniques. It's generally the main study fields of the department. Now I will talk about the study, survey, analysis, and evaluation of Zeytinli village from Mibros. It's a Mediterranean island. This is an outcome of historical environment course. We did it in master program. As you see, these are the project teams, and one of them. It includes a village in Zeytinli village in an island. The island is Gökçeada with old name Imbros. A survey, analyzing, documentation, and conservation proposal. These are the stage of the project. Gökçeada is on the west side of Anatolia. On the lower map, you can see the red arrow. It is a province of Çanakkale city. It is the biggest island in Turkey. It includes old village settlements and new village settlement. The history, the island is a touristic place. It is like really crowded in summer, but less crowded in winters. The history of Gökçeada is really dated back to old, but the history of Zeytinli village is occurring of Greek people and Turkish people. This village is mainly a Greek village. before the establishment of Republic of Turkey. After that, the Greek people left and Turkish people stayed in the village. This is an old photo from village. It's on the scene at the main square of the village in 1910s. The physical characteristics of Zeytinli village is like that. The village is located on the slope, and the name of village is Zeytinli, and Zeytin means olive in Turkish. So the village is surrounded by olive trees, and also it has really good natural characteristics and well-preserved architectural characteristics. This is photos from square of the village. In the study, we analyzed 340 buildings, all of the buildings in the village. We analyzed their physical characteristics, social characteristics, and also architectural characteristics. First one is floor numbers. The majority of the buildings in the village are two-story buildings. And after that comes one-story building. 3 or 4 three-story buildings are really less. And also it's a village, so there is no more than 3 flooring. When we look at the street pavements, it's an also authentic original characteristics about the village. It has authentic stone pavements, less place and a little bit altered one in the map it is shown, and also they are concrete, really altered lately. When we look at the land use of the village buildings in the village, the majority of the buildings are residential, and also their authentic function, their original function is also residential. Some of the buildings are coffee places and shops. There is one historical school in the building, and it's the photo at the lower. I hope it's seen. This is an active school. It's a primary school. And also there are 3 churches and 1 monastery in the village, and they are really good architectural examples. When we also try to understand architectural characteristics of the buildings. So we look the plan types. There are two types are here in generally. And first one is there is hall in the center of the building. And the second one is hall is at the one side of the building. So it looks a creation on the plan typologies. This typology is reflects the facade also. So there comes generally 2 types. And first one is symmetrical, and entrance is on the center of the building. And the second one is asymmetrical. The entrance is one side and the windows are on the other side. There is this organization of openings on the facade. When we look at the social status of the residents of village, there are so many people coming later to the village. Native people that born here are really rare. So they live generally on the big part of the year in other places, like in Istanbul or in Athens. They come here in summer, but the one lives here constantly for all the year are dealing with agriculture generally. Their profession is like a farmer. And also this village has many different type of buildings. There are vernacular architecture examples, and also the buildings are from modern time, also from new era. I think it is visible. The orange one are vernacular architecture examples. That means rural buildings and with really small openings with little ornamentation. But the green ones are really highly elaborated, detailed ornamented buildings with different plan type. And the other ones are new ones. So this village has so many different historical events. After so many different historical events, this this village becomes a little bit abandoned. So all the native people are gone from the village. So buildings become ruined or structurally damaged. That's why we try to understand how are the buildings condition situation. The yellow ones are the one with no alteration. The blue ones and the green ones are structural alteration, the ones with structural alteration. And the purple ones are new buildings, and they are totally different architecture characteristics. And after that, we try to understand the village. We look at how the strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats of the village. The village has so many value, like historical value, originality value, authenticity value, and it has potential in agriculture and also in tourism. But after all these politic events with Turkey.
I'm sorry to interrupt you in between, but there is some background music coming up along with your voice. So,
Really?
yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe is it like a fan voice?
Yeah, kind of.
I try to make it different.
This is much better.
Okay. I put some books to make it higher, but is it okay now?
Yeah, it is much okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. I continue. The weakness of the village is like after all these politic events with governmental issues, the village has become abandoned and not alive village. So this is a really bad position for and for agricultural space and also for buildings. There is a airport on the island, but it works only in summer. So this is also bad thing, a weakness for the touristic activities. But still, there is really good agricultural opportunity. There are olive production and wine production going on in the. There's also authentic, original agricultural production like special coffee. We call it dibek kahvesi, dibek coffee. There are this production is going on, and also there is some kind of threat. As I said before, tourist potential is also like threat to the village because it harms in generally really dense in summer months. They create a pollution and also so many demand coming on the island. So after that, we propose a conservation approach for the village, and it includes selling organic, authentic products belonging to this village and island. So we also propose a parking area because the streets of the village is really narrow, so traffic becomes a problem in summer months. And also for abandoned derelict buildings will be proposed as accommodation usage, as hotel or pensions. Now I will talk about the second study. This is related with a historical building. It's a residential building from Southeast Anatolia, from Şanlıurfa, and it's my hometown. It includes documentation and conservation of the building. As you see, it is on the southeast of the Anatolia. This arrow shows the location of the building and nearly Şanlıurfa. Şanlıurfa is a really old city with old civilization living here. But in Ottoman mainly, there becomes a good architectural examples like Hans, baths, mosques, something like that. On this map, the red dots are the borderline of the historical environment, and it's nearly the same with the city walls. There's a castle, and it was built in 5th century by Roman commanders. The green ones are residential buildings, and the blue ones are commercial buildings. The blue ones includes all hans, baths, traditional baths, mosques, bazaar areas, and we call it arasta. And it goes like that. It looks like the texture really well preserved, and this historical center is also still in use in nearly commercial most of the places, but there are also residential use are here too. And on the right side, right corner of the building, there's a small dot, and it's the I couldn't see. And it is the location of the case study building. The case study building is really close to city walls borderline. There are so little piece of the city walls, but it's also visible. The second photo is a piece of the city wall remains. And also the building is from 19th century. It's an really late example, but also with historical characteristics and architectural characteristics. The building has a courtyard. The traditional Şanlıurfa houses is like that. They are introverted buildings. There is a courtyard on the center, and all the space surrounded by courtyard. To the spaces you can access from courtyard. And from street with high walls, you cannot see the inside of the buildings. After you enter the building, you can see all the spaces, rooms, etc. And this is the plan organization. This is a courtyard, and the photo is here. There are a little, so many traditional spaces, like this one on the north. It is develik. Develik means camel barn, barn from camels. Camels were used to for transportation in the past, and it is the second photo. But the other ones, like these 3 rooms side by side, they are zarzambe, and zarzambe means cellar, like a storage. They are covered with cut stone cross wall, first photo, and the level of these spaces are under the courtyard level, so they are like natural refrigerator. They are always cool in summer and also in winter. This courtyard is a living area, and also is a connection area. It connects all the spaces to each other. Also, there is tandırlık. Tandırlık means traditional kitchen. It also has oven in it. The one part of the building is two story, and the other part is 1 story. This is the second story of this part, and it includes 3 rooms and 1 A1. A1 is an semi-open place. It is generally shaded and always cool place. It's really good in summer months because Şanlıurfa is really hot place, especially in summer. These rooms are also covered with cross wall made from cut stone, and also on the wall, like this, there are niches. These niches are cupboard. Their function is cupboard. On the facade of the building from street is really small, like this one, because after you enter the building, you can see all the spaces. With the collapse of the roof of 1 room, it is visible here, this facade becomes really low and less material. This is the facade of courtyard. As you see, it is A1. These are rooms, 3 rooms and another room. And this place is a transition space. You can first come here and to the Zarzambe places with the lower rooms. You can enter from here. Also, these buildings are made from limestone. Limestone is a really good and suitable material for decoration, like ornamentation. These stones are really detailed ornamented pieces, like in this drawing. This one is in front of A1 place, and also it is really decorated limestone pieces, and also well preserved. All of the buildings are nearly made from cut stone, and the material is limestone. Limestone is common, really used in Şanlıurfa region, in all around the city. And also there is one wooden pieces roof on the ground floor, one of the rooms. These crosswalk, limestone crosswalk, enables to make these buildings cool, and also it becomes an isolation from all weather and from in soundproof. After the abandonment of the building, these buildings are really not suitable for modern life. The roof of one room has collapsed. Then it caused a little bit missing of pieces and also decorations. With the abandonment, the building must become neglected. So a developed place, in developed place in roof, there are discoloration, and also the maintenance of this building is really important. There are earth material roof covering. So if it's not well maintained, it becomes wet, and it causes sagging. So this is the first photo. And also after Develik camel barn is useless, they make some addition to make all these places to regular room. And to solve the restitution problem, we make a comparative study. Comparative study is related with how all these traditional buildings, nearly same plan organization, are preserved like this. And so we try to solve the restitution problems and missing parts of the buildings, the traditional house. And after that, this restitution of the building is like that. I forgot to mention, there is a division in the building. These traditional buildings is like haremlik and selamlik for male and for female. There are two different kind of space. So in this one, the selamlik place for male space becomes a totally new resident. So they make a new reinforced concrete building. They lost all their authentic characteristics. And with the restitution, we try to make all these buildings to old orientation, old form. And for the owner's decision, they want to use this building as a residence. So it proposed that the new part, the collapsed part, should be renovated. After this division of the plot, the new part couldn't be the old owner, so it still stays the same, but with the maintenance and structural rehabilitation, this building should be used as a residence for in modern time also. And this is the conservation decision for this building. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kizzy. That was wonderful. We enjoyed your project, and definitely students have learned a lot from it. I must say that your architectural drawings were so crisp and so perfect. It was so thorough. The whole study was amazing. And now let me see if you have any questions. One question which was coming to my mind was like, which softwares do you use while working in this field? Do you use CAD or do you use ArchiCAD, and do you even use 3D softwares?
I use both of them, 2D and 3D. Generally in 2D I use AutoCAD, but
Okay.
for 3D I use Revit. Revit is a really good program. But for like application or restoration sub proposal, always we use AutoCAD. AutoCAD is really helpful. So I generally use AutoCAD, but Revit in advance.
Thank you so much. Let's just wait for another minute because I need to check if we have any question answers. Sanjukta, can you see if there are any questions?
I saw.
Yes, I'll just check.
No, I don't see any in the question answer section. I'm sure that students must be still grasping about this new subject.
There is
I
one. There is
Yeah,
one.
there
Yes,
is one question. Do
Okay.
you use any scanning?
uh,
Scanning,
like
as in,
I
we,
think,
Vibha, can you explain scanning method like
LIDAR.
LIDAR?
no,
okay.
no, I didn't. We only use thermal camera for to maybe there must be opening, but we miss. Only like in this situation, we use thermal camera, like thermal scanning, but not like LiDAR.
And also, Kezi, can you explain more about what are the job prospects after completing a master's in conservation architecture?
Okay, of course. In Turkey, we can make some application projects, but in academic environment, our school is in English, so it gives so many opportunity like in exchange programs, and maybe after that programs you can continue. Also, our Izmir Institute of Technology is developed by so many scholarships. So it's really highly recommended program in architecture conservation nearly in Europe.
And do you take individual projects or is it always a group projects? How is it?
Uh, no, both of them. In class, in studio, we make a group project, but in individual also, like the one I did with group, I can make it all by myself because it's learnable something you can do it, but maybe in the beginning it's really good with making them as a group, but in the application in the field work, it is really easy by yourself individually.
So, also, I would like Sanjukta to throw some light about how professional conservation architects are working in India right now, because she has presented her papers abroad, and she has a really good experience working in conservation field in India as well. So, Sanjukta, if you want to share anything
Yes, I'd like to share,
about the
but
scope in conservation architecture in India, basically.
yeah, I think in India also nowadays we are also moving ahead in terms of heritage conservation and development. Although I think most of you, the participants who have joined here, all are aware that how much in India we have a very much heritage diversity, right? So we have a lot of old heritage since from the ancient time of prehistoric time, and still there are many monuments monuments, sites with a lot of historical importance. But in between, maybe there was not that much importance given out. But nowadays, a lot of scope is there, and not only now at present days, the architects or the people who are working in heritage conservation, they are not only just limiting themselves to only a particular building or a site. Even we are now, the scope is also getting broader in terms of urban conservation, look in terms of ecological conservation, in terms of cultural landscapes. Then there are also rural heritage, right? There are a lot of intangible heritage which the rural people have, a lot of cultural aspects, beliefs, traditions, which we also need to conserve them. So there are also a lot of scopes, people are working to develop them. And then even our intangible cultural heritage. And right now I would also like to say to the participants that like if anyone is interested to take their career ahead in heritage conservation, so maybe further, if for any works or for any, if they are worried about funding, so there are a lot of funding agents also who are really both in Indian government, and I'm sure even abroad also. If I think Keziban can also agree on that, there are a lot of government agencies which are like in India, Intech is there, then UNESCO is there, then ASI, we have, they have lots of funds available in them, and every year there are scholarships given. So students can identify projects, do their research work, get funds and scholarship, and really work in this field of conservation, and like like conserve the heritage which we have inherited. Yeah, that's what I would like to say that.
Yeah, thank you
And
so much,
yeah.
Sanjukta. That was wonderful. Also, Keziban, there's an attendee who wants to ask you, what inspired you to choose this field of conservation? It's a question.
I would like to say that, like Sanjukta said, there is also diversity in Anatolia. In here, there are so many different type of heritage, cultural heritage assets, like archaeological sites, prehistoric remains, and from Roman era, from Ottoman era, so many assets like that. And when I was studying in Bachelor of Architecture, I really became aware like I maybe couldn't do better than this, but I can conserve them. That's why I choose conservation. And specific on this site, I chose this site because first one is rural heritage, and it's a village, nearly alive village for for since the last century. It's a alive village with Greek people, Turkish people, and etc. Also, and it has so many different. It's in a small village, so many different architectural examples from Republican era, from vernacular architecture, etc. So this that site, it's Zeytinli village, is really rare example and really valuable for us, for architects. And the second one is it's from my hometown, and I have a chance to observe the life of that buildings, the traditional building. It's really rare today, but in 10 years ago or maybe 20 years ago, they are in good condition, all the buildings, and the native people live there. So I really like that lifestyle. Today it's not common or not accessible, because all these places have been changed and become ruined, it needs maintenance, etc. But and also I want to document maybe even one of the buildings. That's why I choose those different sites, and also conservation.
That is wonderful. Actually, this question is again striking me that this is a very interesting question to ask our founder, architect Zarna, because coming from a background of furniture design and then completely changing her direction towards conservation, I think students will be really interested to know your story. What do you have to say about it?
Thanks, Mithali. I really wanted to do the same like Keziban always, conservation. But things change because those times when I completed my bachelor's, conservation was not so much there in India, and the opportunities outside India, you are not so sure you will be there coming back or what. You always have to figure out that, okay, if nothing works out, you have to be back in your own country and be working, right? And of course, furnitures is close to my heart too, and the combination helped me out a lot during my conservation project, because I could think of in all the ways, not only the architectural part of the building, but also conserving the traditional furnitures, and designing like how the street furnitures can work when we take up a precinct completely for conservation projects. So uh, you take different ways.
Yeah.
You don't know surely how to move
Yes,
on,
I
but
absolutely agree to that.
you can change.
And
Yeah.
the projects which are coming up as interior designing projects which are coming up on Samanuvidatr page, they have an amalgamation of both furniture design, conservation, heritage, all of it, and
All of
it's going to be
it.
fun.
Yeah, true, because there's diversity in the firm, so it's going to be there.
It is getting reflected somewhere. I assure that. Okay, so should we
uh,
conclude this lecture now?
there is one
Okay, there's
question.
one more question,
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
So that's the question for job opportunity in private sector related to conservation. Dear, conservation buildings are not really the private sector ones. But yes, there are private firms which collaborate with government, and they take up the project. So yes, private sector do work in conservation, but eventually it's going to be in collaboration with government, unless and until it's your own house, it's a haveli you have from generations and generations, and you want to do it. So there you won't require any government thing. But yes, if the building is in a heritage precinct which is coming under UNESCO listing, yes, then it won't be completely done only in private sector. That's there. Another question I was seeing up is how to get into it, and for that, dear, we will get in one-on-one session touch, and we can see what will be the best one, whether to study in India or whether to go Europe. We cannot just generalize that requirement. So that will be an individual thing. Thank you so much, Kezi, for being here and giving such a wonderful presentation. It was really, really amazing work you have shared today with everyone. And I'm sure the students are going to be very helpful, and they will for sure get to know at least what kind of drawing qualities is required.
Yes, sure.
Yes.
Thank you for the invite, and also I will be really glad to be here, and also see you, Zarna. I miss you.
Yeah.
It will be really good.
Let's plan out the holiday again.
Yeah, I hope.
Sure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you
Kezi.
so much.
Thank you so
welcome.
much. Thank you.
I guess our next speaker is also here.
Okay.
Hi, Ali. Hope you are doing great in Italy. Things are normal.
Hi, Sana.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fine.
Fine.
Managing with COVID.
COVID situation, true. Otherwise, we
Yeah.
could have been calling you in India, But
Yeah, no, now we are again in red zone, probably till end of April.
oh God, all the best. Just take care. I will ask Mitali to take over from here, and we'll move on with your presentation too. Mitali, please.
Yes. So I would like to introduce our next speaker for the day. So he's architect Ali Reza. He is going to guide us today, and he's coming directly from the Just a second, there's some instability in my internet. Are you guys able to hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes.
Okay, so he's coming directly from the global capital of fashion and design, which is Milan in Italy. And he has done his bachelor's from Manipal University in Jaipur. And he has done his MSc in sustainable architecture and landscape design from Politecnico di Milano. So I had a one question like this: Politecnico di Milano and Politecnico di Torino. So you have to explain me about that later, but I'll just continue further. So he's currently working as a collaborator with DVS Architects in Milan in Italy. He has an extensive experience in various fields as he has worked with different offices in Mintu Ball Kunst in Netherlands. Then there is Studio Ponzini in Italy, and in India also he has an experience at Ahmedabad, and he has also worked with Intag Kashmir chapter, which is very interesting, which I felt the most interesting part of tourism. And he has gotten recognition for his. He is rendered in promotion and revival of Kashmir handicraft through their incorporation into contemporary architectural practice, and got a wonderful recognition for the same. The list doesn't end here, and he has done transport planning and some urban design projects with the government of J&K. His research work has been published at various international journals. Well, enough of me talking, and I would like to hand over to architect Ali Reza now, and he'll guide us today. And I'm welcoming you today, and a very good afternoon. Welcome, architect Ali.
Thanks a lot, Mitali. So,
also, students, please, it's a request that whatever kind of questions you're having, please put them down under the question answer section, and Architect Ali would be answering them after his lecture is done. So, thank you. I would mute myself, and you can continue from here.
okay, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, the voice is clear.
Okay.
We can even see your presentation perfectly.
Okay, thanks. So basically that Milan and Torino thing, it was a dual degree program. So like the main course is in Politecnico di Milano, and then they have this collaboration with Politecnico di Torino.
Awesome.
But that is more, let's say, multi-disciplinary. So for the thesis of that, suppose it was more engineering based, and in the group I had an aerospace engineer, a mechanical engineer, a designer. So it was
okay, so sustainable architecture sustainable architect working with a different array of people.
Yeah, that was the let's say the gist of it for the other program.
So the name of the program is basically MS in sustainable.
Actually, that program is called Alta Scuola Politecnica.
Okay.
The other program, but the degree I'm doing is sustainable architecture and landscape design.
Okay.
So regarding the topic of the presentation, I've done my master's from Politecnico di Milano in this field of sustainable architecture and landscape design. But a major difference that I see in education in India and abroad is that you, in the end of the day, are free to choose what you want. Even the projects that I'll show you, even if it's a landscape design studio, but the actual part on which you are going to focus, it basically just depends on you. Some people, they decide to go more into detail of, let's say, the planning of the vegetation, or some people choose to do more into topography or into geology. So the scope of all the projects is very broad, and it eventually depends on you what you want to do. Even the courses like sustainable architecture and landscape design, we literally have had just one landscape design studio. Apart from that, we had architectural design, we had environmental design, we had environmental regeneration. So it basically covers everything. So honestly, the name of the project and name of the course is not very, it doesn't limit to its scope. So I'll be presenting 3 projects. First is the landscape design studio. Second one is advanced architectural design, and the third one is urban and environmental design. So the first one, it's called sequential revelation. It's based in Cantina Romagnoli in north of Italy, close to Milan. It's the modules basically covered advanced landscape design, geography, and geomorphology. So as you see in this graphic, the site, when you see, it's basically based inside a productive landscape, which we don't really associate as something with strong aesthetic values. But then Italy, we just saw presentation regarding conservation. And in Italy, it's very strict. They're very particular about the conservation of everything, their built heritage, their natural heritage. So even this productive landscape, which is majorly characterized by vineyards, but when you see it in, when you actually go through the landscape, it reveals its diversity. So there are different layers of landscape typologies that you experience as you go through the site. So the idea was, the basic gist of the design was, can design offer poetry and possibility to these very strong forces of necessity and utility of these productive landscapes? And as a designer, how can you decide like how much to intervene in the landscape and how much the landscape should influence the perception of the viewer? So I'll skip through the analysis. It's just basically showing that the site is located close to the river in one of the four valleys of this area. And the river basically defines the character of the soil, and based on which is organized the natural palimpsest of vegetation. And these are different landscape typologies. So there are different visual and physical barriers, both natural and man-made, which are defined first in terms of the changing topography, then in terms of the vegetation, the tree lines, and then there are different sensory perceptions, which are generally basically defined by the surface textures, and also due to the presence of various human activities and let's say biodiversity. So closer to the road, there are more, let's say, mechanical noises. And as you move away from the main carriageway in deep into the landscape, there are more natural sounds. So this is the changing soil topography, which basically defines the whole character and organization system of the landscape. So based on the type of the soil, you actually have cultivation of different species of grapes. So this is just a scheme which shows how this landscape, which you saw in the first image as following a strict geometry, how it actually incorporates different layers. So the design concept was basically dealing with the revelation of these aspects of the landscape. And as you can see in the strategy diagram, along the section of the site, we decided to put some pavilions that explain the production of this wine, the local wine of Piacenza. I would like to add that Piacenza, the wine produced in Piacenza, where this site is located, it has a very strong cultural significance. And the first written records date from 2nd century BC. And then it was also very famous during the Roman times. And even Michelangelo was drinking this wine while he was painting the Sistine Chapel. And it has also won many recent national and international recognitions. So the wine has a very strong character, and the taste of the wine basically incorporates two aspects. First is the tangible aspect, which like the taste and the smell, but then there are intangible aspects which are related to the site from where it is produced. So when you know that a wine is produced from, let's say, Tuscany, Tuscan wines are very famous. They are like, and they are called Vino di Favola, the fable wines. The whole thing, because of which they are very famous, is because they incorporate that essence of the landscape they are produced in. So the same, following the same idea, that design basically tried to incorporate this wine production process through installation of different pavilions. So this is the master plan, in which you can see there is this egg on the bottom right corner is the cantina or the winery. And behind, as the landscape, as the topography increases, there's around 40-meter rise, there are these geometric series of vineyards. And this was an existing axis passing through the center. So the first installation is called Genesis, or it basically deals with um, the importance of the character of the soil for the germination of the seed. So the pavilion basically is below grade, and as you go down, you see the same vineyards from different perspectives. Normally you see from eye level, and as you go down, you see like the stem, the root, the soil composition that is actually determining the character of the final wine quality. So inside this, the natural stratigraphy was replicated to create awareness about the importance of soil characters. And because it's in the middle of the site, so this also helps in a way that it's not very evident, or it's not dominating over the landscape. It's just, let's say, framing a certain aspect of the landscape. The second one is called the growth, which basically is related to the growth of a sapling into a mature vine. So there are these series of walls that create spaces. The walls are spaced differently to create the perception of growing bigger. So when you're in a big space, you feel small. When you're in a small space, you feel big. And also the surface textures were related to the colors of the leaves during different seasons. And on these walls, there was information written about the different cultivation practices, the Greek method, the Etruscan method, and this place also acts as a open air theater when required. Then the third one, which basically is placed along the slope, is called a transformation, which deals with after the harvesting of the grape, the actual production of the wine. So the three main processes: the crushing, the fermentation, and the aging. So there are three different pavilions along the section that highlight these processes. So the design were abstracted from the actual physical objects used for these processes. So like this crusher was used to design the pavilion for crushing. Then for aging was used the wine barrel. And then for fermentation was used this stand in which you keep the bottles for 2 or 3 or even 10 years. Then after that, at the ridge, from where you actually see the panorama of the whole valley, it's called climax, or it's basically a place where you can, where there are facilities for wine tasting, and also services like toilets and all. And it's also a multifunctional space that can be used for other activities apart from wine tasting. This basically frames the whole landscape, and the idea was that there are two existing structures there which were in a very dilapidated situation. So they were demolished, and this thing was created because there was a need to have something there, because this is the major landmark of the site, and it enhances wayfinding through this landscape. And after that, the last landscape typology is it's called introspection. It's inside an artificial lake. The lake is already existing there, and the idea is behind this lake there are more vineyards, and this pavilion goes inside the water, takes you to the level of the water, and then there is a mirror inside a water in which you see your reflection. Behind the mirror, there you can see more vineyards. Then behind that, you can see another tree line. So there is this layers of landscape still behind. So it creates that impression that this is not the end, and the user can choose to continue the journey. Then the second project is called Ricucire Ponticelli. It was the modules covered designing in peri-urban landscape context and third landscapes. Ricucire literally means darning in English, or rafu. So this was done during the pandemic, so we actually didn't have the opportunity to go to the site. So this shows how the analysis can be done without going to the site actually. So these are the first impressions of the site. This was based in the context, in the precinct of a hospital, Ospedale del Mare, in Naples. It's the biggest hospital in Naples and one of the biggest hospitals in South Italy. But the scale of the hospital has a strong disconnect with the rest of the neighborhood. So these are the first impressions, in which you can see that on the left side, there is this streets and structures which have this human scale. And as you move towards the left, the scale of the buildings increases. There are so many roads, like some roads are even 8 lanes or 12 lanes, and they're highly underused. And how people are using them for informal reappropriation, and how most of the roads are closed. So as you can see in this analysis, this is the existing built fabric. This place here is the hospital. So there is a railway passing through this, which divides the north of the site, which has that human character, to the south of the site, which are more high rises. So the hospital is provided an opportunity to be kind of a link between the north of the neighborhood and the south of the neighborhood. The existing building use is majorly residential apart from this hospital, and there is a school here. And the site circulation, you can see like there are too many roads. The gray ones are, let's say, the highways, which are like 12 lane. Then green areas are also in abundance, but they were totally disintegrated, especially because of the railway. There are no connections from this part to this part, except this one underground connection. Then the site services is majorly parking for the hospital. And there are lots of edges because of the change in topography, and also because of the walls. So the design concept basically dealt with mediating this scale from one side of the site to the other through introducing new structures which would visually reduce the scale of this hospital, but then it's a functional structure. It still has to perform its prime function. So the ground let's say the footprint of the buildings was kept minimum, so that the hospital still has flexibility to function. Like during the COVID, they were using the outdoor spaces to keep the patients. So in order to let those functions continue, the footprints of the new structures were kept minimum. Then to design these new structures, we studied the vernacular architectural vocabulary, and also the quality of socialization spaces. So we could, let's say, incorporate them into the design. So the design strategy basically reappropriates this existing street into an outdoor living room. It was quite a wide street, and these connections to the alternate sides were enhanced. Then we created a new threshold by introducing these two new buildings. Some structures, residential structures, were removed, and they were reaccommodated in those buildings. One of them was the community center, and the other one was completely residential, with ground floors of both being commercial. And this existing parking was reappropriated into public orchards and urban agricultural farms. Then this railway was taken underground, and a linear park was created. This project was just a part of the whole studio. So like there were groups doing different areas in the whole site. So like this linear park connected then to the other groups on the east and the west. And then these two new structures, which were the drug de-addiction center and meditation center, they provided basically extension to the function of the hospital, and they also created the shift in the axis, because this axis couldn't go straight due to the presence of the hospital. And then finally, this road here was again realigned to reduce the number of carriageways and provide more public spaces. So as you can see, after the design, this is the space of the green network, which basically has high maintenance areas, low maintenance, and no maintenance areas, which are basically the third landscapes. And then the public space network, which shows how a variety of functions have been put into this precinct of a hospital, which generally is not very inviting to people. This is the master plan, and in this you can show how the line. So this is the existing situation with the railway in the middle and two carriageways on either sides. And then the railway goes underground. This becomes the linear park. Then this road section is from here. So existing situation with service lanes and parking along the road, and the proposed situation with public space on both the sides, providing these spillover spaces for the commercial activities inside these buildings, and also green areas. These are the side sections, which again show the concept of mediating the scale. So the hospital certainly looks more in the human scale visually. So these are the plans of the first part, the threshold. So here is the community center, and this is the residential part on the upper floors. And these are the details of it. So the design of the interior spaces were more flexible, catering to the needs of the people living there. And these are the modules of the existing parking of the hospital. This was the parking lot, which was converted into a urban orchard. So they are again multiple options for these. This could be an eco park. This could be a bicycle sharing points for co-working spaces with solar panels on the ceiling, and also recreational gardens. Then the second part for guiding the user circulation was this drug de-addiction center and a meditation center on the other side, with water retention pools and open amphitheater in the middle. The vegetation of all of them was was basically designed based on the local tree species in Naples. And for the design of the elevation, we took the reference from the study of the existing built fabric. These are the renders of the interiors of the meditation center. And the last one, which was the healing garden inside the existing courtyard of the hospital and this linear park. So there was a high school here. So this linear park basically provided spillover spaces for the high school. Then this abandoned park was integrated with this neighborhood. We removed this. There was an existing road here, which was removed. You can see here. This road was removed and included in this road. So this neighborhood got direct access to this park, and this park was connected to this linear park. So the basic idea was to integrate all these disintegrated open spaces. And then for the design of the hospital facade, again to break the scale of this massive structure, the idea was to do this facade treatment so that it resembles the existing architectural language of the city. So you see this massive structure was, let's say, broken into smaller units, and then the other leftover spaces were covered by this element. It's basically a surface covering which has titanium dioxide, which basically absorbs the pollutants from the air and retains them. And when it rains, they go into the earth. This is the final view, which these two new structures basically were aligned to frame this Mount Vesuvio, which is a volcano in Naples, and it's a part of their heritage, natural heritage. Then the third project is called Barceloop. It was an urban and environmental design studio, and the modules cover design of public spaces and infrastructures. This again was an existing situation of an industrial site. So there were these warehouses, which generally we don't associate to any sort of heritage, but then in Europe, they have this strong sense of retention of heritage. So even those were a part of the heritage. So the design basically used these existing structures, just their facades, and retained them to, let's say, frame the future. So as the subtitle says, framing the future in the relics of the past. So as you can see in this, the existing facades were retained and then the new construction was done behind them. So this is the master plan of Barcelona. This is the Centro Histórico, old city. And this is where the industrial part is. So you can see the changing urban fabric, but it's still, they have 7 layers of urban fabric, and this one belongs to the 7th layer. And here you can see the design development. So this was the existing site with these warehouses. Then this road was reduced and was split into 2 parts. So this became the dedicated access to the site. And these structures were, let's say, split, and new structures were put behind. And then there was this creation of variation in the lengths of these structures to an old age home, community centers, and other similar things. This is more clear in this thing where you can see the existing structures being cut. Then this part, it again had a railway on the back side, which was at an elevated level. So the lower level was completely dedicated to parking behind and commercial activities in front. Then these new structures were added, and they were acting as bridges between the existing and the new. And then this road, which is, let's say, the gateway to the new part of Barcelona, this had this structure which framed the entrance. And this is the master plan, in which you can see it created these series of internal courtyards which were more private compared to the other public spaces around. Then for the vegetation design of this, and the vegetation basically worked with the exterior material palette. So whatever materials were used, the tree species and the trees, the bushes and the flowers, they were combined to match with the, to complement the materiality of the structures. Behind there was created this bioswale for the water treatment. This is the railway. So as I was explaining, on the ground floor you have parking and commercial activities. These are all residential structures. And behind there was this thick noise retention barrier, which was the first layer. The second layer was this vegetation, and the third layer was this noise absorbing material along the railway. These are the design schemes for the design of the buildings. So on the ground, you have commercial spaces. In between the 2 buildings, you have this light well, and there is lattice for ventilation around it. Behind, you have a buffer wall for noise absorption. And on the terrace, you have green spaces, which are more private compared to the outdoor courtyards. These are the floor plans, which again have just a fixed core, and all the space around is more flexible for the users to lay them out in whatever way they want. So this is regarding the design of the central, the courtyards in between. This character of these streets and courtyards was again taken from the old city of Barcelona, which has these narrow alleys which then open up into a super open courtyard. And the function of each of these courtyards was defined by the character of the surrounding buildings. So like there was a kindergarten here. The courtyard had play areas. There was a community center here. So the courtyard had these public seating spaces. Then for the water management system, this is the bioswale that we saw in the section. And all the courtyards had underground water tanks, and these water tanks opened up into this bioswale, which had another retention tank, and the overflow went into the city water system. So that was it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Architect Ali. I can't believe that I saw such an amazing work. The graphical representation for each and every project was so amazing. I'm sure students would have learned a lot from this lecture. And let's see if we have some question answers from the students for you.
If it's okay, I would like to show one video because these were all
Yeah.
studios for there was this subject called landscape representation and modeling, but the submission basically dealt with we had to make a movie, and the idea was to show the textures and the scales through like still photography made into a video. So
Yeah, still absorbing with all the representation you have done up till now, but surely we would love to see your video.
It was really amazing. I think students have got to know what all, like, how this subject can be more interesting with all these digital
thanks a lot.
We have a previous speaker with us, architect Keziban, and she being a conservation field, uh, it's wonderful that how a landscape architect with sustainability in his mind is working towards conservation for certain precincts which you showed in your project. Like how is the way you are dealing with heritage in your sites. So that was really amazing to see that.
Thanks.
Let's see your
Can
video.
you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Is the audio visible? Can you hear it?
I think
Not there.
it's
Audio
not
is not
audible.
there.
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear that. Yeah.
The audio is slightly on a higher side. Can you lower the volume a little bit? Thank you so much. That was a lovely video.
Yeah, that was a lovely video.
The concept was really nice.
Yeah.
The basic idea
I
was
can
to
see a
show
few
this
questions.
transition of spaces from like inside the city to as you move to the outskirts, how the textures change, how the scales change.
Yes. I think we have a few questions.
There was one question like, what is this movie assignment about? So Shubham Sonamne is asking us that what is this movie assignment about?
The subject was called landscape representation and modeling. Apart from this, there were other things like QGIS and all, which you basically use to do the urban analysis, but that's the part of the analysis. But then how to represent it, there are different techniques. Like this is one of the ways to do it when it had different modules. This one was basically, let's say, more creative one, in which, like, as in this movie, you saw it started from a closed space. It shows a different scale of a human to a built space. Then it went into open plazas, into streets, and the scale of them was always changing. And that human is kind of a reference with which you measure the things. And with each of them came their own palette of textures and colors. When you move to the city outskirts and the scale randomly changes, you saw that huge arch, which is basically a bridge, and then you go into the more natural landscape towards the river. So this was just a technique of showing this landscape, because landscape is also like natural and built. And then there were other modules like meta shape and all, in which you can recreate any object or a building. How you represented the story and all, that was like, that's your choice.
Okay.
I think we have one more question. Should we take up that?
Yeah, Sanjukta, go ahead.
Yeah, Pratik is asking how your course taught you both sustainable architecture and landscape, as it both has their own master's program.
I mean, I said in the beginning also, the name of the course doesn't justify it. It's basically a very broad course. In the first semester, just talking about the studios, in the first semester, you have architectural design studio. Then in the second semester, you have environmental and urban design studio and landscape regeneration studio. There are 2 studios in second semester. Then in third semester, you have advanced landscape design. Then in fourth semester, you have advanced architectural design. So the course in itself is a combination of all of these things. And these are just the studios. Apart from that, you also have other subjects like history of architecture, theory of landscape and architecture. There's also structures in the first semester. And then also some electives that you are free to choose.
Okay. I think Pratik, your
Actually, as I understand, as the name is completely different, and landscape and sustainable architecture is not the direct translation of the course which you have done, and because you have an understanding of this field, we have named it as landscape and sustainable design, because you will be elaborating more on those subjects, but the direct translation of the subject is not landscape and sustainable.
Yeah, also, as I mentioned, it's ultimately you are free to choose how you want to detail your studio. I mean, even in the like in one of the projects I showed from Naples, that was an architectural design studio, but then the scale was urban. So it starts from urban scale, goes into architectural scale, and also deals with the aspects of landscape.
What you can explain to the student is that how did you end up deciding on this particular course, and how did you what interested you the most to go for this course in specific?
Firstly, it sounded interesting
Yeah,
because it
it
had
does.
these 2 things in it. That time, honestly, I didn't have any clue about how the course structure would be.
Okay.
So when you apply in Polyme, you have to choose 2 courses. So I had chosen this one, and the other one was urban design. And then also for this one, I got a full scholarship. So I'll be honest.
Yeah, it does matter a lot. Scholarship does matter a lot. Sanjukta, there's one more question by Pratik.
Yes.
No?
Not by Pratik. Okay, yeah, in the question answer box.
How's the scope of sustainability and landscape in India?
No,
Does doing masters
does doing
abroad make
masters
it difficult to understand the Indian context afterwards?
No, not really. It actually somehow improves the way you see the context because uh, when you deal with something like frequently, you let's say start taking it for granted. That's what has happened to our heritage. Let's say we have so much heritage and then we somehow don't care about it. Let's be honest. It's a very recent trend in India about conservation and all because we have so much of it and we start taking it for granted. And then when you move out of India and stay away from that part of you and then go back, you see the same things in a different context with a more broader perspective. And also you somehow become more sensitized to it. At least that's what happened to me when I go back home. I mean, even those chaotic streets with no sidewalks, people, cars, animals, everyone walking together, it feels really interesting. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just different.
Also, Neha Lad wants to ask you, how is the scope of sustainability and landscape in India?
I mean, honestly, I don't know about it because I never went to India after doing this. But yeah, I know about like how they teach landscape in India. In India, if you are doing landscape design, it will be its core focus will be that you should remember the names of the trees. Like this tree, its botanical
Of
name
the
is this. It
trees.
grows this big. It has this much shadow. That will be the core focus of a landscape design, which is important. But then it's not just it. So that's the difference in the teaching method in India and abroad. But the scope of work, I honestly don't have any clue.
but if you can give few insights on what scope it has on the abroad, like currently, what are the scopes in the field of landscape and
Yeah, as you're already working in the field, you're working as a collaborator. So can you tell us more about that?
Actually, the work I'm doing is more related to adaptive reuse, which has more to
Okay.
do with sustainability, but it's
Okay.
not into landscape design. So it's basically a Swiss company based in Sion, but they have their office in Milan. So all the projects are, yeah, most of them are based in Switzerland. So and it's just adaptive reuse of existing structures. So you start with the documentation of the existing structure, then proposal of the reuse plans, and then also the execution. It's more into sustainability than into landscape. But yes, in Europe, there are lots of firms doing landscape design. And with sustainability, you can go anywhere. But landscape design, there are specific firms.
Thank you so much for this session, Ali. It was really wonderful to have you here. I'm sure students have also gained a lot of knowledge. Just a second. How to get free scholarship? Pratik is asking. Pratik, I think you'll have to get onto a one-on-one session with us because that's a very detailed session which you
yeah,
will have to do because it's not something. It's based on a lot of things, and you should come to us on a one-on-one session, and we'll be able to help you further for that. Okay, we can conclude this session, please.
yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Ali.
much, Ali.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much
coming.
for inviting. It was amazing.
It was all our pleasure, by
Yeah.
the way, really.
Thanks a
Thank you
lot.
so much, Ali. It was
Thank
nice
you,
to
Zarna,
meet you
for
after so many years.
catching up after so many years.
Yeah, you have excelled. The work is amazing. I know your bachelor's was so great, but your masters have turned out to be awesome. It's great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Sorry, Ali, there's one more question. Sorry. In Milan, the language of course is English or some other?
Depends on the course. For bachelors, most of the all the courses are in Italian. For masters, most of the courses are in English. Some courses are both in English and Italian.
So the one which you
For
are doing.
architects, it's in English.
Okay, good.
But then, yeah, there is this problem of, I mean, you need to know the language eventually. Because even the professors, they are not really good in English. They expect you to know English. Like when you apply for admission, you will have to give your IELTS and all. But then the faculty, if you actually, I mean, they are very proficient in English, but then you can always communicate better in your own language. So, yeah, you need to know
it's
Italian.
same for all the countries, I guess. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. It happens. True. Thank you so much, Ali. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Also, our next speaker, the third speaker for the day, Mr. Shalin Shah, he is also here with us. Hi, Shalin.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, good. Is my audio clear?
Yes, it's clear.
Perfect.
Okay, so let me just start introducing you. So Shalin has done his BTech honors in civil engineering from CEPT University in Ahmedabad. He has also done MS in engineering and management from Stanford University in US. He has an extensive experience in construction professional, and he seeks to maximize the efficiency of large scale construction projects through various control measures and procedures. So currently he is working at Skanska, if I'm not wrong. Skanska, US.
Yep.
And he oversees their Pacific Northwestern division based out of Seattle. He handles projects with construction cost ranging from no less than $500 million to they even go to up to $4 billion. And the projects are basically into oil and gas, commercial and heavy civil infrastructure projects. I am sure that students would love to hear from a professional who has such a great experience in handling such vast scale projects. And I would like to now hand over to Mr. Shalin to continue with his lecture. Welcome, Shalin. You are welcome from Samanuvidatr side. I hope you have a good evening today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And apologies if my voice isn't very clear. It's like 5:15 in the morning. I got up like 10 minutes ago, and here I am. So.
Okay. So good morning. A very good morning to you, actually. And
yeah. Well,
the audio is absolutely clear. No problem in that.
Yeah, I'm just kind of used to getting up at this time, but not on the weekend. But it's okay. This is good. Yep. So are you going to pull up the presentation, or do you want me to?
You can directly share your screen and you can start your presentation.
Okay. Give me 1 second. So you'll have to help.
So there's this green button on the bottom of the screen, which says share screen. It's in green color. So if you press that, you will be able to share your screen easily.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. We can now see your profile. Yeah. Just make sure that you're making it a full screen. So.
Yes.
Did it full screen now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, let me get rid of this.
Also, I would like to tell all the students to write their questions in the question answer sections as I said before. And Mr. Shalin would definitely answer them after his lecture is done.
Yeah. Are you seeing like your like video box on the side, or
No,
you're
no,
not seeing
there's,
that?
yeah, we are able to see you and your presentation both.
Okay, but you're not able to see like yourself or others, right? Because I see that in the middle of the screen right now.
You can move them aside if you are getting disturbed with that.
Okay, but you guys are not seeing it, right?
No, 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 we are not seeing it.
Okay, perfect. All right, so thanks for the introduction. I appreciate it, Mithali.
You're welcome.
This is great forum. I mean, I always love to talk about construction engineering and management and why I ended up here, and I hope others end up here as well. I think it's a fantastic field to be part of. It has a lot of potential opportunities. I'll kind of go through some of that. So I wanted to start with a quick picture of one of the projects I'm working on right now here in Seattle. So this is kind of like a major freeway that goes like through downtown Seattle, and we are building a almost 4 mile, which is like about 5.5, 6 kilometer long light rail system, similar to like the Delhi Metro or like Mumbai Metro Rail. But it like a part of the project, the reason I picked this picture is like a part of the project goes through the middle of the freeway and goes across from like the left side, which you can see on the top left side. It goes from there and like crosses the main freeway and goes on the right hand side. It feels pretty simple from just looking at it. Oh yeah, it just goes across the street, but there's just so much coordination. There's cranes, there's moving traffic, there's a lot of public agencies involved, and the chaos that gets created when we start building this is kind of what I really liked about construction management. That's why I chose the field, is because it's such a dynamic field. There's just too many moving parts. Every day is a new day. You learn something new every day. It's a new challenge every day, and that's what keeps me going every day as well. So kind of the coordination, how to make this happen, is what a construction manager typically does. It's like one of their primary role and responsibility. And yeah, we are personally, I'm very passionate about the built environment, which is like, it could be anything, building, roads, highways, anything like that, but it's something that really interests me a lot. So currently I work with Sky, which is one of the like top 5 largest construction companies in the US and definitely in the world as well. So do get a lot of exposure working on different scales of project and different types of projects. So it's really cool to see how it all comes together overall. So going to the next slide. So the agenda, what I'll be covering today, and feel free to ask questions as we go, and I'll try to answer them towards the end or even in the middle if you want to stop me and ask something. So I'll go through the construction industry overview of like what it means and why I chose the field. Some of my curriculum at the school, what I learned from the courses I took there, the career paths, like what after the masters, which is what I did, and then companies or type of companies who would be potential opportunities where you can join them, and then we'll go to the questions. So next one. So just an overview, and some of you might already know this, but construction industry overall is very diverse field. Like there's too many ways you can call construction happens in something, but it's into three very broad categories. It's like vertical construction, which is any like tall buildings, residential, commercial, which is essentially going vertical, and then there is going horizontal, which is like highways, utility work, metro, like the project I am on right now. That's mostly spent horizontal. And then there is industrial, which is like refineries, power plants, factories, mega scale construction, all kind of falls into this category. And when I say vertical, it doesn't have to be like 10 stories tall or something. It could be a house, which is still kind of considered a residential building. Just kind of broad categories of the industry. And this is very fascinating to me. If you look at, and this is just to give a perspective on what it means, is just in US, and I'm sure it's fairly similar in India as well. I don't have the numbers there, but it's like $1.3 trillion industry. And that means that there is almost like 680,000 or more employers, which or companies which are involved in the construction, and then there is 7 million or more employees working for those companies. So it's a giant industry, and there is a lot of people rely on that for livelihood. A lot of people rely on them to even have a place to stay, have a roof under their for themselves. So it's big. And just to give a perspective, like this picture that I put here, and some of you might be familiar with it. It's the Indira Gandhi International Airport for New Delhi. And it was recently, there was a new terminal that was added recently. The project cost was about like $2.5 billion, which is like still a lot in Indian currency. And they ended up constructing like one of the top 10 largest airport in the world. And just to put things in perspective, 1.3 trillion that's spent just in 1 year for construction, you can build like 520 airports, similar scale airports within 1 year. That's kind of the investment that happens in the construction year over year. And this is just USA. And I mean, opportunities are ample across the globe. I mean, I'm sure like there are some European countries, even UK, China. I mean, they are one of the biggest investors as well in construction. Everyone talks about like infrastructure expanding the scale within the country. So the investments are growing. What I'm trying to get to the point is like there's a lot of money. Being a construction manager, you get to manage some of this very complicated large scale projects and be part of change for the society, which is very very cool to be part of construction industry. So just another perspective to look at this, like every $1 billion that's invested, there is about like 13,000 jobs that are created just in the construction industry. But there is also like about 340,000 jobs which are not directly related to construction, but it's like suppliers and services, like where we get our materials from. It could be concrete, wood, flooring material, like those are all suppliers, which is also keeping their jobs. So it has a massive scale of impact overall for the society. And like every dollar spent has like $3.5 or $3.6 of economic activity in other industries. So it's big, but it could also mean like construction industry is also one of the lagging industry as far as use of technology or use of modern tools and techniques. So innovation is very important. That's why I would recommend, like, if you can get into research, get more innovative products introduced to the market, and also be more sustainable. I think construction industry is also one of the top 5 largest producer of greenhouse gases. So specifically due to like use of concrete and wood, but it's still which has a big impact to the society and the environment. So there is a big sustainable part of construction industry that's kind of making rounds right now. It's making a big impact, and a lot of people are getting involved in that, which is really good to see. So for a construction manager, what's important? Like why do you need a construction manager? I mean, there's architects who do the design, there's structural engineers who do the structural design, or like, and put the vision of the architect in place and make a design that works for building. And eventually it's the construction team who makes it happen, like who are out in the field making it a reality. But is it really helping, or is it really working? Like, how do we make it better, right? So the biggest challenge that the construction managers have to face is the architects have a really great vision. The planners have great visions. How to make it a reality, and is it going to work? So rather than having the architects or the planners work in silo and like do their own design, nowadays it's a joint effort, and it's called it's called the big room concept, which is where the construction companies and the architects and the designers, everyone involved, kind of get together early on in the project and talk about the challenges and the opportunities where they can make the project successful and make it better for everyone. So it's sustainable, it's safe, it's the best solution for the case that we are looking at. So it's very important to be working as a joint team and not create a chaos, because it only, if it's a chaos or if it's not a well-designed project, it will only lead to more time on the more time to build the project, which is like loss of time on schedule, or cost overruns, which we don't want typically, or the clients don't like as well. So who decides this? I mean, how do we decide this is the right solution, or like what's better for the society? I think overall nowadays, it's fairly clear, like we want things to be sustainable. We want it to be open for everyone. If you're looking at like public transport or like highways or like libraries or places where a lot of people come and go, those are like, you have to keep in mind who's the audience, who's using it, and design it accordingly. And which I'm sure everyone knows about this, but it's very critical for the construction managers to look into that perspective rather than just taking a set of drawings from the architect and like just make it happen. It typically doesn't work like that anymore. And you can see here, like there is a bunch of participants who are involved in this process, like the owners, who's the one who's paying for it. It could be public or private. The architects and the engineers who are involved with it, the contractor, which is the prime contractor who is building the work, and they could have subcontractors working for them. So it could be mechanical, electrical, plumbing, heating and air conditioning. All those specialty contractors would work for the general contractor and and help build the entire project, whatever it is. It could be convention center, it could be a building, it could be a house, but all this are typically participants that are involved. There's vendors who provides the materials and equipment to build the work, and then regulators, which is like the public agencies, the banks who are providing the loans, insurance. We have to take into account their needs as well. So when all of this come together, a project can be successful. And a construction manager is one who's orchestrating the entire audience. Like they are making sure like all of these pieces to talk with each other, and ultimately the client or the owner receives a product that's what they were looking for, what was their vision, and like they received the vision, right? So the construction manager deals with all of this, and essentially like the construction manager has to know bits and pieces of everything. They can't just be focused on like building it and not necessarily understand where the architects come from a design standpoint, or an engineer comes from a like structural engineering design standpoint, or any other design. So it's very critical for the construction manager to understand all those aspects and put it all together during the execution. So, and the challenges, or the whole intricate dance that the construction manager has to do, it's very time oriented. Like the projects cannot go on for like years together. Like you have a fixed timeline, deadline that you have to follow. Say it's like 1 or 2 years that you have to complete the project in, within a scope or within a budget. Like you only have, I don't know, $100 million to build it. So it's like you build it in 2 years, you have $100 million, this is what you're building, just make it happen. And then construction manager or the construction company would take it from there and like make it happen, or they would sign up for the contract with that in mind. So there's a lot of moving parts that have to be in place, and without the right knowledge, the projects can fail easily, and you typically hear a lot from companies like the projects are delayed, the cost overruns, like the project is now like 100 crores over their budget and stuff like that starts happening, and then it's not a win-win situation for everyone. The clients are unhappy, and like they would not want to work with this contractor again. It's just not a good situation to be in. So going to my curriculum, and this was just kind of overview of what a construction manager does. Essentially, they are looking at it from all perspectives, make sure everything is in place before we go into actual building of the site or the project, and then make sure it goes to the finish line. So to get there, a lot of colleges, and obviously I studied here at Stanford in US, so my experience is more coming from that perspective, but I also studied in India as well, so I know both sides of masters of how construction management courses are delivered. For the most part, they are fairly similar as far as what topics they cover. Essentially, it's obviously a bunch of courses, and it's a very evolving field. And like I did this like 10 years ago, and it was slightly different than what it is probably now. But the core or the principles still stay the same. I mean, the construction management as a tool or as a skill set is still the same. So when I did my master's, this is kind of how they set up the curriculum for us. It was broken down into the 6 major categories. So it starts with like, and they were offering courses like across different quarters, like autumn, winter, and spring. This is like 1 year of the program, and the major categories are building, infrastructure, and urban systems development. And there were a bunch of courses focused only on that topic. And the way the courses were set up is like, if I'm going through the management route, which is this first column on the right hand side, like purple color bar, I have to take at least that amount of units from one of those courses. So they kind of focus on diversity, like grow across different types of topics, but at the same time you should have in-depth knowledge about a particular field, which is the construction management. So they kind of spread that around. So first one is like the building, infrastructure, and urban systems development. So it's how you develop a project, how do you analyze a project from a finance standpoint, from a cost standpoint, from a schedule standpoint. And then they just walk us through a bunch of different projects globally and kind of explain or provide that information to us. And I'll kind of go into the slight details in 1 or 2 of these courses in the next slides. Then it focuses on structures, which is the essential design of it. It's not necessarily important for the managers to take these courses, but they are available in case if someone's interested in it. Energy and atmosphere. This is kind of like the life cycle assessment, the environmental sustainable part of construction, to get the exposure on that side, to understand the life cycle cost benefit analysis, like how much of an impact does a construction project have on the environment. Like they literally take each and every piece of product that's put in the building or in a house, and they analyze it. So like, for example, concrete. So concrete comes from this concrete plant, but then the concrete plant is getting those materials from whatever their suppliers are, like for aggregates and cement or whatever, right? So then we go and analyze the cement manufacturers, we go and analyze the aggregate manufacturers and see how much their plants are emitting carbon dioxide or any impacts to the environment. Like what's the transportation cost between those plants to this concrete plant, and from the concrete plant to the job site, like all this transportation cost that comes in. So we kind of analyze all of that. And kind of understand, okay, we are just building this house in one corner in US or wherever in India, but it has a lot of cascading effect overall from different suppliers, different vendors, different companies that are involved, and it all adds up. So a choice that an owner makes in one corner, one part of the world can still have a very large effect overall across the globe. And one good example was recently in the Suez Canal. There was this ship that was stuck, and everyone's like, okay, there is a ship stuck, and now what's going to happen? Like the canal was shut down for a few days. All the ships that were backed up, they could be impacted because they were supplying materials to other companies or other vendors and providers. It has a cascading effect globally, and like no one thinks about it, but like literally, like though that ship stuck in Suez Canal had an impact in cost or pricing of materials here in US on one of the projects that we are building. And the vendor is saying my material is stuck, I cannot provide you the material on time. If you want it earlier than anticipated time, then they would have to fly in the materials to us, but it'll be an extra cost because of that, rather than having it shipped to us. And the project has to take a decision, like, do we want to wait for the materials to show up and delay the schedule, or do we want to get it right away and incur more costs? So you would think that it's a ship that's one ship that's stuck in a one part of the world, but that can have cascading effect everywhere else. And this life cycle assessment part of the energy and atmosphere kind of goes through all that, and like how everything could have impact for one project, and understand the impact to the energy consumption and all that as well. Next part is the construction itself, which is like fabrication and construction of the actual project. It focuses on, so this is where my expertise comes from. It's like the project controls, which is what I'm heading right now. It deals with a lot of management type operation. So it's either schedule, the entire schedule is built by the project controllers, cost, the budget for the project. We go into a project, a contractor is bidding for a project. So estimating also falls into construction managers area. So they put together the estimate, the company, like if it's a public project, the company would bid for a project. So they would go and fill out the tenders that are floated in the market, and then they would put a price on it, but they cannot just put a random price. There has to be some kind of estimate that supports that. And then the company also has to make profits. If they don't, then I mean, it's not a project that they won't want to work on. So project controls or construction managers would put together the estimate, put together the proposal for the client. Once they win the project, they'll start the planning phase, which is put the whole proposal, for the whole planning of how are we going to execute the work? Where are we getting the materials from? How do we set up the laydown yard? How do we have, where do we set up the cranes? Where do we set up offices, trailers, like everything? Like that's the whole planning and vision of the entire project. Like on day one, you have to know, if it's a 3-year-long project, you need to know what you're going to be doing in like month, 30 of the 36-month period. Like what are we going to be doing there? So the whole schedule has to be set up on day one, because without a plan, the project will never succeed. Like you have to have the plan in place. So the construction managers do all of that, and then the final execution, which is the actual building of the project. And that's typically fairly easy if the planning is done right. And once we do the execution, the eventual part is the closeout, which is we have to sign off and turn over the project to the owner, and close it out. So it's the full life cycle of the project that the construction manager is involved with, like literally from the day the project shows up in the market to the day we turn the keys over to the client. So construction management is a very diverse field. I'm not saying like you are going to be involved with every aspect of it, but I mean you still need to know every aspect of it to a certain extent. So then the construction courses focus on that, and I'll go into some details on a couple of them in the next slides. And then the industry context, which is what was taught to us as well. It kind of just brings in speakers from the industry. It's fairly standard. I think most colleges does it now. And then just get a perspective from them and see how they are doing as far as a company. What are the new upcoming techniques and tools? Like we are now using BIM or VDC, which is virtual design and construction, or building information modeling. All those tools are very new to construction, but they are very powerful. So kind of coach through that. And then the last part is the skills. So believe it or not, I mean, we do have a lot of computer skills we need to learn on, and analytical parts. It's a lot of data mining and data analytics. Like you have to say, as a construction company, you've probably done 10 I don't know, convention standard projects, for example. Like all those projects have some historical data. For just like giving rough examples, like to build a 10,000 square feet hall, it costs us this much, and that's the kind of the historical data. But then you have to make sure, like, that doesn't mean it's going to cost me the same in a different part of the world. Like the cost in Seattle would be very different than it is in New York, than it is in Los Angeles or in Houston, or like it. You have to look at the actual specifics of the market, understand the cost implications, how you build for the project, and then do a lot of data analytics. So the skill part of it is like they teach computer skills, they teach Excel skills. Not that we don't know about them, but it's just more advanced type of skill set, like how you can use modeling, negotiation, how do you negotiate with the clients, a lot of projects, big projects specifically in India or anywhere else in the world. Negotiation is a big part. Typically the projects on day one are envisioned to be done perfectly, but we all know that the construction is never perfect. And like when we start digging and we find something in there like that's not suitable, like the soil is not suitable, or there's like I don't know, people have found dead bodies in the dirt as well, like when they start digging for a project. And then like, what do we do now? Like we shut down the project, wait for the client to give us direction, but then that means that there is more time that we need for the project to be completed. Now we cannot complete the project in the time frame that was agreed to on day one, which means now you have to ask for a change order, which is change to the project. And that means the client has to either pay for more money or allow for more time. And all that comes down to negotiation skills, which is also very important. So construction managers really deal with all this by themselves. A lot of financing comes into play, accounting, scheduling. I mean, there is 10, 20, 30 different types of items that a construction manager would be involved with on different projects. And it's very important to have those skills as well. So some of the big picture programs that we used for the construction management course here, building information modeling, that's the new 3D side of construction, and even 4D to a certain extent. It's like create a model and make sure you envision the project and finish it as planned. I'll not go through details on others, but like project financing is one where it's like, if it's a very big project, say like a highway project, you can't support the project by just financing from one client. Like you probably need to go to market, issue bonds, and take loans from different banks. So we kind of go through that, and like the finance is also part of construction management as well. Managing equipment, managing the design. So just kind of similar stuff that I went through earlier. So one of the biggest item that I was gonna talk about is planning and controls, which is what I'm involved with. So you get a set of drawings, which is what what I'm showing here, trying to show here. It's like you get a set of drawings from the client or the architect, and they say, go build this, right? So now you have to put together a proposal. So this is kind of a bid proposal form on the bottom center part of the slide. It's your price for this. So the construction manager goes through all the drawings, puts together an estimate, puts together their markups and profits and whatnot, and then they put a number on it. It's like 1.2 million in this example. They're lump sum. A lot of contracts are lump sum, which means that the number you put here is all you get paid for the entire work. Like if you say you get awarded the contract and later on you find out that, oh, your estimate was off by a few $100,000 because you did not include this one piece, but you still have to do that. It's not on the client, it's on you to make it happen for the same price. You cannot ask for more price as long as the documents showed that you were supposed to do it. So so it's very critical to have the estimate correct. The construction managers would, that's why it's very critical, because you can make or lose money massively on projects if your estimates are wrong and if your proposal was incorrect. And then you put together a schedule, which is what this right-hand side screenshot is. It's out of Primavera P6 is what it's called. It's very popular scheduling software for construction industry. You essentially go through it and like put down every activity you're gonna build on the project, like start from digging the dirt and putting the foundation, putting the columns, putting the beams, putting the walls, floors, like everything is in it. You go through the duration of the entire project, and if say you come up with, say, this is how you're going to build the entire project, this is and it's on day one, it's built for the entire duration, which is like say 2 or 3 years in some cases, or even more. And you put together the resources. So we can't be working at peak performance every day of the week or the month. Like we have to manage our resources. So what I mean by that is like you need to make sure you have the right equipment on the job site when you need it. You have the right people and manpower on the project when you need that. All of that has to be planned with a schedule in mind. Like we cannot, and it's kind of common sense, but it's hard to envision on large projects like the ones I'm working on. It's like you cannot have like 10 people or 10 different agencies working in the same area at the same time. It's not going to work. The coordination will never work. So you have to space them out. Like if it's a convention center, you can have one contractor building the columns in one corner of the project. The other side, they're maybe putting the slab, and maybe the other side, they're putting the walls together. And it's all different agencies. They need different types of equipment. They need different kinds of tools or manpower to build it. All of this, I see it as an orchestra. Like everyone has a small part to play in the large process, but the guy who's in the front is the one who's orchestrating the whole band, and that's the construction manager. Like he or she is the one who's looking into all these aspects and making sure like everyone's doing their job correctly on time, when we need them at the right price. So it's very critical for construction managers to look into all those aspects and make sure the projects are successfully done and planned really well. This is what I was talking about, the building information modeling, which I think will interest a lot of you here. So essentially, this is the actual 3D model that's created in Revit, or like one of the Autodesk tools that are now used in the industry. Typically it's Revit nowadays. But anyway, so the top left part shows like how the beams and columns or the steel members are installed. And the reason they do that is because they want to detect any clashes. It's very risky, or it's very inefficient from a cost standpoint if you say encounter a problem on the project when you're building it. Say in this case, this was one of the convention centers. You can see on the bottom right, they were looking at a clash detection. So you run a clash detection on your model. So all your like structures consultants, your electrical consultant, your mechanical consultant, everyone like piping, plumbing consultant, they all go into the model. They input their design, how they're going to build their scope. And then the construction manager takes information from all of them and put it together in one big model. And then he or she tries to figure out how they're going to build the entire project. And then they run something called clash detection, which kind of shows fatal flaws in the construction. Like in this case, and on the bottom right, you can see the piping was going through a beam and a mechanical duct. And it shows up as a red member, and it essentially is now, okay, so what do we do here? So this is even before we are building the project. This is like during the planning phase, the construction manager is doing all this, right? So it's like this work might not happen for 2 years down the line, but he's looking at it like at the day one or first few months of the project and saying, oh, so there is this problem. we would definitely, based on the designs that are given by architects and the structural engineers or the landscape engineers or whoever the other ones are, this doesn't work. Like, we have to fix this. So then the construction manager would provide or propose a solution. Architects can agree to it if it fits in their design, or somebody else has to move their stuff to make it happen. So you can see on the top right, kind of shows that, like, there was this pipe or plumbing line that was supposed to go through mechanical duct, and eventually, like, there was this slight kink that was supposed to be created in the field. This happened out in the field. So rather than having a straight run of this mechanical duct, there was this pipeline that was already installed by one of the piping contractor. So now they had to install this slightly deviating piece in the mechanical duct to install their part, and they could not do anything else because the plumbing contractor had already installed it. So those kind of items are very critical to be realized upfront, put the sequencing together. So we can't, in this particular case, we cannot have the mechanical contractor go in and install their stuff before the plumbing contractor is done. So the plumbing contractor has to install their pieces first, and then the mechanical goes, then the electrical goes, then maybe the fire extinguishers go in. So it's like, how do you sequence all those trades or different agencies that are working for the contractor? Make sure they are not working on top of each other. Like in schedule, like, you would make sure, like, the plumbing contractor is installing pipe one day, but the following day is when the mechanical contractor installs their stuff. We can't have both of them working at the same time, because then they will end up wasting each other's time, and like the work would not be productive. So productivity measuring is very, very, very critical for the construction managers to look into, and they look at it from different perspective, like look at the unit rates, the man-hour rates, how much time do we spend to do the same amount of concrete in one corner of the project than it takes in the other corner of the project. They analyze that, they figure out, oh, like, why is it taking 10 hours to build this 100 square feet of wall, but in the other corner of the project, it took 20 hours to do the same type of wall. Why is it taking the double amount of time? So then the construction manager would analyze it, look at it from what was the underlying factor for the overrun in hours. Maybe it was equipment. Maybe the equipment could not get there easily. Maybe there was a big hole that was dug right in front of the wall, and the workers could not access the area easily, and that's why it took longer for them to build. So productivity analysis and tracking is very, very important for construction managers to be successful. So when they bid for the projects, they have an assumption that we are going to build X amount of walls, X amount of flooring using this many hours, and that many hours times the per hour rate is what they will put in the estimate, right? So if you're using more hours, that means you're overspending against your estimate, which is not good, because you will end up losing money in the end. So construction managers looks into those aspects and and make sure it's successful for everyone. This kind of gives a very broad overview. I mean, there's a lot more details than this, and probably can't go through all of it within the time frame we have right now. But feel free to ask questions if you've got any. Like, just a big, broader career path for a construction manager. Typically, like 0 to 5 years, you become either project engineer, field engineer, safety, or estimator. What this means is, like, it's for fairly entry level. Like, project engineers, like, review the drawings, review the specifications, review the contract documents. Those, like, more office side of business is what the project engineers do on construction companies. The field engineers are the one who go out in the field and are actually executing the work and planning the work out in the project site. So they're not necessarily stationed in the office, but more out in the field. Both experiences are important for construction managers. Regardless, when you go through the courses, you will learn all of that. Safety engineers is putting a safety hat on. It's like, are we building it safely, efficiently, sustainably? It's all part of the safety engineer. And estimators, like we talk about, it's putting together the proposals for projects. About 5 to 20 years of your experience, you typically transition into project manager role, which is like you run the projects, like you've got a few teams working for you. It could be like electrical, plumbing, mechanical, structural, all those teams, individual teams. Each one would have project engineers, which are like 0 to 5 years experience. And then the project manager is essentially managing those teams, and looking at it from big picture, how it all comes together. Project controls manager, which is kind of like my role, is like look at it from a commercial standpoint. So it's like the cost, schedule, estimating, change orders with the client, planning, like risk management. Like say now you're seeing like right now with COVID, a lot of material prices went up or is shooting up. So how do we manage those risks? Like that all falls into the project controls. Safety, estimating, like those are kind of the roles you would see yourself like 5 to 20 years down the line. And then after 20 years, you typically become a VP or like senior project executive. You are essentially running like an entire region. So you have like a portfolio of projects under you that you're managing, and like reviewing their financials, reviewing their risk profile, and then either look at that from an operation standpoint, which is like sitting in the office and looking at that, or you're out in the field and become a superintendent and look at the entire operations out in the field, how you manage like your field crews, equipment, trailers, all that stuff out in the field and planning that. So you could go either an office route or a field route, and they're both very open to construction managers. Or you can become a senior estimator or a consultant, which is also very new upcoming field nowadays. It's like there are BIM consultants, which is like a building information modeling consultant, like I showed previously. They focus only on that, and they help the construction managers put it all together. There could be consultants for many other things, but it's kind of a path taken by construction managers as well. And this kind of to wrap up, I mean, these are the kind of companies or opportunities that come up that would be hiring for those roles that I just mentioned in the previous slide. So could be architectural firm, engineering, design contractors, structural engineers. General contractors are the ones who are actually building the work out on the project. Design build firms, so they do the design themselves and build at the same time. So those are like very large contractors who have in-house engineering capacity and they do the design themselves. Developers are just the ones who who are essentially managing the general contractors, but they still have to have the knowledge of the construction because they are the representatives of the owners or the money that's been spent on the project, and they manage the contractors and the subcontractors as well. Energy and sustainability consultants. This is a very new upcoming field where they talk about like the life cycle assessment. Are the buildings sustainable? They talk about the LEED ratings nowadays, like LEED green, LEED gold, silver, platinum. Those kind of consultants work as well with the projects. They make sure the projects reuse a lot of materials and focus on that as well. Facility management are the ones who are like working on operations and maintenance of the projects. Make sure once the projects are built, they are running efficiently and how they're intended to be running. So that's some of the companies who are interested. Sustainability, I think I talked about that one within large companies. Clean tech startups. So this is also very, very new, where the clean tech is essentially upcoming technologies like using, I don't know, wind power or like learning from the nature and putting that into implementation when you're building something. They help with that. And they have like very innovative products they come up with, like concrete, for example. They use a different mix of concrete. Maybe they use, like nowadays, I think it's very common everywhere. They use like fly ash from the civil plants. From the cement plants, and they use that as a material rather than using the cement because it's more sustainable. It's dirt that's gonna go into the landfill. They might as well use it for construction. Some use plastics, some use wood, some use mud. Right? It's like there's all kinds of startups that are coming up to implement those clean tech operations. You can be working for a venture fund too. So a lot of venture funds or investors are investing in construction companies, but they still need someone with a construction experience and background to help them make the right decisions and funding decisions. So those are some of the companies you may end up working for as well, or you start your own business, which is fairly common as well. So these are kind of like just a broad perspective of the kind of companies you may end up working for if you become a construction manager, like construction engineering and management program. If you go through that, these are kind of companies that you may be involved with. And this is not the entire list. Probably there is more that I probably missed, but this just came to my mind. But the opportunities are ample. You can pick what you want, and you can pick one and like choose to go somewhere else if you don't like it. But definitely recommend this program. It makes you as a very well-rounded individual and make better good things for the society. So I'll kind of wrap up my presentation with this last quote. I really like it. It's always inspire, like always think of how you can inspire others around you and how you can make a sustainable, long-lasting product. Like construction is a very tangible field. Like you build things, like you have a convention center that you are literally part of working on. You build highways, you build airports, you build malls, you build houses. It's very inspiring. Like you talk to your generally, like you talk to your kids, whenever you get them, and like you talk to them, and it's like this is something I built. And it's very, you take a lot of pride in what you do, and you should always inspire others around you. At the same time, be inspired from others around you. Like be very open to ideas and suggestions. A lot of people have a lot of great ideas. Learn from them and expand your skill set as well and network with them. So always be inspiration to others, but be inspired from others as well, and be always open-minded. Like be on the lookout for different techniques and opportunities that come up, and use that to your advantage. So I'll wrap up my presentation. And I don't know how I can look up the questions, unless you guys can help me with that.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Shalin. That was really good. Again, giving us a different perspective, where like what the previous two topic was. It was more on design, it was more on conservation. But again, your topic, I think students have got a different scenario on how construction management could also give us more scope, and how actually on-site work has been carried out, and how a structure or a building gets executed. So that was really nice. Thank you once again. I think we will take a few questions. There are.
Perfect. Yeah, I hope it
Yeah.
was some insightful. I mean, it was
Yeah.
very quick, but at the same time, it was insightful for at least to give some perspective, because I don't think a lot of people even know or understand what construction managers do. But this is kind of a big overview of what it means.
Yes, true. I think one student, he's asking, Aditya Sharma, what skill set or sense of interest an individual should have to move from B.Arch to master's program in project management?
So it's a very broad question. It's very like personal, like individual level. Like you have to like it, but at the same time, I have seen, I mean, in my program that I studied at Stanford, like there was like at least a dozen, or if not more, like architecture students who were involved with this. So the reason they came to the construction management program was they wanted to learn this entire life cycle. Like architects typically tend to look at it from their vision, or like their siloed perspective. I'm not necessarily saying it's right or wrong, but it's just how it is. Like architects look at it from, I want this very fancy design, I want this very unique structure I want to build, but then is it even feasible? Is the client gonna like it? Is it structurally even possible to build something like that? So when these architects came to the course, they got this very broad overview. So then they would be thinking about stuff like, okay, if I'm using aluminum instead of steel, the cost impact would be this instead of this, or something like that. And like, how does it have an impact down the food chain? Can I build the project faster? Can I make savings for the client? It's like, just to get that open perspective of how things are built is why some of the architects choose to do construction management. And again, like I said, like construction management is something you learn, but it doesn't necessarily mean you end up there. You can still go back and practice your architecture field, but now you have exposure to construction management, and then you can use that to your advantage when you're doing the design for projects. So I would say there is no skill set that's really necessary. Like, we had people from like finance background, like not even know anything about construction, come to the program. Like, they would be like accountants, for example. People from law degrees would take construction management. People from business degrees would take construction management. It's just that if you want to go into the civil or construction field and expand your knowledge, because like I said, like venture capitalists, for example, like they could be interested in construction management. Like, they might be investing in big projects. They need to have the understanding of how the projects are made or developed. So for them to know construction is important, so they would take the course as well. So it's a very broad vision that you kind of get to understand, but then it's up to you to choose if you stay in construction management or go back to your bachelor's expertise that you learned. But it's just a different perspective to look at construction.
Yes, true. I think there is one more.
Mhm.
So there's one more question. How do you think like architects will they be able to handle such courses like project management or construction management? So do you think
Oh,
architects?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think they can handle it really well, because architects have a good perspective on this, on the construction already. Like, they know what they're designing. The only piece that they might not be exposed to is the actual construction of it, but like learning this course would help them. I would say from a workload burden perspective, it would be not be very difficult. I mean, all these tools that I was talking about, like, I did not learn them before, even though I had my civil engineering bachelor's. Like, I did not learn them going into the master's. I learned them during the course itself. But and I think all of us would agree, like, the construction field is very practical oriented than it is like theory oriented and like learning in the school. Like, you have to be out there looking at things, or like see how things are happening and learn from it. Because even if you learn something in college, like, there is very less likelihood of you implementing exactly what you learned in college out in the practical field. Like, the construction projects are very different. Like, one project in one area, if you have the same set of drawings and plans, and if you take that project, move from one city to the other, it's a completely different challenge. It's a completely different project, even though the looks and feel of the project is the exact same, but the intricacies of how you build it is very different. So that's what you learn being construction managers. And I think the architects or planners, it's very easy for them to come into this program and learn more about the project management side of things. I think project management is just a management skill set. Like typically a lot of engineers do engineering as bachelors, and then they do MBA for their masters. It's kind of similar. It's like you have your expertise for bachelors, but then you kind of get a very management perspective of how you make it all happen when you do construction management. It's like I said, it could be you might not even be an architect or a planner, like not even related to civil field itself, but still be fine learning construction management and like excel in the field. And like I said, like the construction management is very diverse field. Like there is a lot of companies or opportunities that come up, so you might still be doing architect or planning after that, but from a management perspective.
Yeah, right. I think in India also now, what the most of the trend is like now most of the architects after their like all the students who graduate from BArch after 1 or 2 years of practice, they are going up. They are taking up courses like project management and construction management. So I think, and as you said, yes, obviously it will be, I think, very much helpful for architects to take up such course because already they are aware of their own design. So for the execution part, so it becomes easier for because they know what they're designing and they need to have learn some management skills and technical skills. So yeah, I
Yep.
think, and there is. Okay, another question is, will such courses like project management or construction management allows you to go into designing during your professional tenure? I think like participant wants to ask whether any design in design field or any designing work you like you will be involved, or it is only like managing the sites and doing all these technical stuff.
So it's, well, the program that I was part of was construction engineering and management. So there was an engineering aspect to it, but everything was focused a lot from a management perspective. Even though like you are looking at designs, you're looking at the actual designing of it, the managers have to, like just like the architects have to learn how to build the projects, the builders have to learn how to design the projects. So they do get that exposure in the construction management field, but I would say it's not heavily focused on the actual designing. Like I'm not going to be doing, I don't know how to do calculations, like physics calculation for like loading, like structural engineers do, or like the architects, like how do you design some of the elements. Like I would probably not know that. I would know the concepts and principles, and that's all a construction manager would need to know. But the actual designing, like the calculations, creating the specifications, creating the contract drawings and all that stuff, a construction manager would not be do that. It will be a designer's responsibility. The program that I was on, the construction management, like if I go back a few slides, it kind of had that option. So this part here, the second one from the top, which is the structures, that's literally the designing. Like you can see like advanced structural analysis or concrete design courses in here. So those courses are available to choose if you like the designing part. But you can see on the right hand side under the management category, there is no units shown there. That means that none of these courses are mandatory for managers to learn, but it is mandatory for the structures engineers to learn. So if you're following a structural engineering path, all these courses are very important for you. So construction management is, I mean, they do allow to learn some design, but it's focused mostly on the management part of the design. It's not necessarily the design itself.
Okay. I'll just check if there are any other questions. There is one more similar question, like one question before, like as you, like whether this course is better for civil engineers only. I think you have already discussed this. You have like, so what do you think? Like, is it better for only civil engineers to pursue construction management or project management?
Well, it's a very typical path for civil engineers to follow construction management. It's an easy career choice for them, or an obvious career choice for them, because they've learned the actual designing and construction part when they did civil engineering. Now they're learning the management part of it. So I would say we did have a majority of students were coming from civil department as their bachelors, but like I said, like we had like law students and business students and all kinds of different fields of bachelors students who were coming for masters in construction management. Being a civil engineer is definitely an advantage, I would say, but that doesn't necessarily mean just because you know how you build things, it's all that the civil engineers have the advantage of, but the construction management is completely a new perspective to it. It's not about how you build things, but how you manage to build things. It's a lot focused on management. A lot of courses, like I said, like are focused on like finance and accounting, and like project controls, for example, like does literally cash flows and risk and opportunities. And it's like, how do you manage your finances? It's like, okay, I'm gonna be invoicing my client this much amount monthly. I'll make this much money this month. I can spend this much money for my subcontractors within the month. So that person doesn't even probably need a exposure to construction or civil engineering and still be a construction manager, because they're managing the finances on construction projects. So it doesn't have to be necessarily related to the actual building of things. It could be the support side of things. It's like, how do you do document control, for example? Like, you do submittals, RFIs when you submit to the client or the designers. The contractors would submit those questions, and you could be coordinating all of that. That's still part of construction management. You could still be doing like cash flows, like I was saying earlier, like make sure that you have enough balance in your bank account to pay to your subcontractors or employees or whoever the case is. So managing all that is still part of construction manager if you're working on a construction project. So yes, it's the civil engineers do have advantage for the actual building part of things because they understand that fairly well, but that doesn't mean that's not construction management. Construction management is a much larger field than that.
I think most of the students, they again, they think if they have to take up these technical courses, again they need to be good at their technical subjects like mathematics and all. So
No, so like I said, like there is no technical requirement. I mean, a law student doesn't even understand. Like like I had a friend who was from law background coming into construction management program. He didn't even, like, when he walked in, he didn't even know difference between like concrete and cement. Like he's like, what, are they not the same thing? I mean, that's how he would treat it. Like cement and concrete would be same for him.
yeah.
So it's kind of like that. It's like you don't have to be technical. You don't have to know everything about the civil engineering or construction. Really, it's about the management, and the management has to do a lot with like people skills, how you manage your teams, how you manage your equipment, how you manage your resources, and technical expertise helps, but that's not the only requirement.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think we are done with the questions. I'll just check if there is anything. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I
Well,
think the questions are done. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Shalin. I think students have really got an insight on the aspects of project management and how these courses can give you more scope in the field of construction, right? And even I think like students who are interested or who takes up this course, even they get an opportunity to work with large big infrastructure companies, and like they really get a scope to like handle big projects, and how in reality how these projects are being carried out, as you said, like from execution to the finish line. And it
yep.
really makes oneself proud that yes, you have, yes, this is being built by me. So yeah, that was really interesting, and thank you so much. Like waking up so early in the morning and in the weekend, and giving your valuable time to us and giving insights to the students here. Thank you so much for being a part of this session today. Thank you, Shalin.
Thank
Well,
you, Shalin.
thank you for the words, Sanjukta. I mean, really appreciate the opportunity. I mean, it's something I'm very passionate about. Like I started my presentation saying that like we are passionate about building environment,
Right.
and and like the more people I can influence and be part of this field, the better. So yes, this was very interesting and good good session. And yeah, if someone's got any questions later on, feel free to
Yeah,
ask me
yes.
and send me a text or
Yeah,
something, and then
we will email you up, Shalin, all the questions if we have any afterwards, or on Facebook or Insta, anywhere. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
I'm sorry my face won't be visible. There is some electricity issue here. And thank you so much, Ali. I was not there when your presentation ended up. So it's really great to have speakers like you here. And I'm sure students are getting so much information, which I guess it was not available earlier. But yeah, it was great to have you guys here, all the speakers. Thank you very much for coming here and presenting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
good weekend, everyone.
You too.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Ali.